Today we're going to talk about postmenopausal women, their belly fat, their brain fog, and their inability or great difficulty in creating muscle mass. They just don't feel they can keep their strength that they had before, and they feel like they're atrophying away. And all of that is true for about 50% of the women in the United States. Especially if they are of European descent. First, we have to talk about estrogen. Premenopause, postmenopause. Premenopausal women are flush with estrogen, especially in their cycle. Some parts of their cycle, they're very high in estrogen, and postmenopausal, they have almost all the time no estrogen. Nobody gets to zero, and even men make estrogen as well. But it's a big change for women. And one of the functions that estrogen did in their premenopausal days was to help create choline. Estrogen helped create choline. Choline is important to understand in this regard. We know there's currently a choline deficiency that's really been out for the last 70 years, and 20 years ago, choline became a nutrient, and they're considering it adding to food because it's such a population-wide nutrient deficiency. But in terms of our body, a healthy individual that doesn't have any particular genetic mutations can produce 30% of the required daily amount of choline. However, that means that 70% of your daily amount of required choline has to come through your diet. And it did come through your diet and your grandparents or your great-grandparents or your great-great-grandparents' diets because they ate differently than you're eating right now. We're eating the era of overnutrition, they call it. Overnutrition means you're getting plenty of calories and you're getting no nutrients. They ate in an era of perhaps hypocaloric. They didn't have enough calories, but they had plenty of nutrition. Just the flip side of what we're doing. Most of the processed food is, as I say, the Dorito syndrome, very devoid of nutrition. So that 70% of the choline that we need to have on a daily basis isn't going to happen. Well, choline does a number of things. The fastest one to point to is acetylcholine. It's a neurotransmitter that stimulates your muscle mass and also stimulates parts of our brain that are responsible for learning and memory. Okay, so if we're shy on choline, we can't make it as well as we could before, and we're not getting as much as we should through our diet, we're going to be behind in making the neurotransmitters. What else does it do? Well, it helps export fat from the liver. When you don't have enough choline, the fat builds up and it is called a fatty liver. In fact, they have a bigger name for it, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, by being choline deficient. Okay, well, wait a minute. Did I forget the original idea? We're talking to postmenopausal women with belly fat and brain fog and can't produce enough muscle mass? Yep. It's because this is the 50%, arguably 50%, that do have genomic mutations that make that 30% of choline that they were going to produce, they can't make very much of it or nearly any of it. So instead of 30%, maybe they're making just 1%. So now, back in the day when they had plenty of estrogen, it was just like a heavy foot on the gas pedal. It was making it as fast as they possibly could. Now, that ability is gone. There's no heavy foot on the gas pedal, and they are very limited in terms of how much daily choline they can make. Now pivot to their diet. Their diet is deficient because they're eating what everybody else is. They're not eating any eggs because they're afraid of the cholesterol. They're certainly not eating any liver, which is the number 1 and 2 sources of choline. So their 70% that's supposed to come through their diet is now down to maybe 5%. So there you go, 5% plus 1%, they are extremely choline deficient. So what does that mean? They're not making enough acetylcholine. They're certainly not getting the fat out of the liver, becoming a non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which actually goes on to make the belly fat. So they'll have neurotransmitter deficiencies, which means they have that kind of brain fog. The neurotransmitters, acetylcholine, if you think of, there's a condition called myasthenia gravis, which is a receptor disease, which can no longer utilize acetylcholine, which is the stimulant to make muscle. When you're working out, it's acetylcholine that hits the muscle. Well, if you don't have enough acetylcholine, it doesn't matter how much you work out, you're not making enough to get that spark to the muscles to start creating a muscle protein synthesis. Doesn't look so good. So what do you do about this? Well, you can go and look for, certainly do a nutrigenomic evaluation and find out what your mutations are. And that's usually where most people start. That's where the 50% start. And they go, oh, I do have this situation. I see that. And it's not just one gene. The gene that catches most people's attention is one that's called PEMT, which is phosphatidylmethylamine methyltransferase. Who cares, right? But that's the kingpin. And there's a lot of different variations of this particular gene that work very poorly. So you can have any number of them. And then there's other genes that feed into that, of course. But these genes help you make choline and phosphatidylcholine. Did you know that bile is 9 parts phosphatidylcholine, otherwise known as lecithin, and 1 part cholesterol? And so if you can't make your lecithin, your bile becomes very cholesterol rich and then ends up making gallstones. A lot of gallstones, because that's where your bile is stored, is in your gallbladder. That's why they have the gallbladder taken out so you don't get your gallstones. But it didn't correct the problem of the bile you were making was mostly cholesterol and not enough phosphatidylcholine. So there you go. What do you do about this? And one is you start eating eggs and you start eating liver. To be blunt, get over yourself on that one. It's just something your grandparents did and they didn't complain about it. Their parents didn't. They did it and they didn't complain about it. And pretty much back for the previous 100,000 years as we evolved, if not 200,000 years as we evolved, we got over ourselves and said, hey, we'll do that liver. So now we're living in a different era of food that supposedly is hyper-palatable. Tastes good, that means. And yet it's way under containing nutrients. And that's the problem. Specifically, folate, choline, B12. These are serious deficiencies. So if you want to get rid of that belly fat, if you want to get rid of that brain fog, this is what you have to do. So it's no wonder that women have the highest percentage of Alzheimer's, highest percentage of dementia, highest percentage of cognitive impairment in their 60s and beyond compared to men, of course. This is the reason. So if you want to change all of that, and ideally your outcome for the next retirement years, we'll say, next 40, 50, 60, 70 years, however old you are right now, you have to be aware of choline and get it through your food sources. Half of you are probably thinking, gosh, well, I'll just take choline as a supplement. You could do that, but you're also missing all the other nutrients that are in egg yolk, all the other nutrients that are in liver. And there's plenty. Are you going to be taking supplements for the rest of your life? There was such a thing called food once, which your ancestors completely relied on. We're not that much smarter than they are. We need our food because it's a broader source of nutrition for us and not just resting everything on a concept of biohacking that allows us to take one supplement and be okay. So think about food and think about good quality food. So the point is pretty simple. And many people have asked this question. What about my belly fat? After menopause, things changed. I couldn't ... I can't even think straight anymore. Well, now you have your answer. The question is, what do you want to do about it? I just want to add, if these short, sweet topics are something that you're interested in and you want to see more videos just like them, certainly let me know, but also follow these videos. Bye-bye.